Hey guys, this time we're gonna be talking about 2 games in one video. That's right folks, we're talking about 2 whole games in one single video. Now, you don't see that every day. Well, it's Gunman Clive and Gunman Clive 2. Now, the first game came out on iOS, Android, it came out on the 3DS of course, and PC. The second game unfortunately only saw a PC and 3DS release, as well as a Wii U release in a bundle with the first game called Gunman Clive HD Collection. Unfortunately, to me, Gunman Clive 1 and 2 both are 2 of the best games ever made, not just best indie games, but best games ever made, and I'm saying that right off the bat. Unfortunately, these 2 masterpieces never saw a physical release, and how could they? They're made by 2 people. One person makes practically the entire game, the other person makes the music. Since both games are so similar, I consider them one big game, and as such, I'm going to be reviewing them in one video. So, when I refer to Gunman Clive, I talk about both games unless I specify which game I'm talking about. The Gunman Clive games are simple pick-up-and-play run-and-gun games with some very good platforming elements, or rather, they are full-blown platformers later on. Now, the games originated on handheld devices, iOS and Android. So, they are wonderful pick-up-and-play games with very short levels where you have to get from point A to point B while avoiding all sorts of different environmental obstacles and defeating enemies along the way. As far as controls go, honestly, these are some of the best controlling games I've ever played. They both have amazingly good, precise controls. Now, the first game doesn't have all that good controls on iOS. However, for what it is, it controls very well even on a touchscreen device. And, of course, the games control wonderfully on systems with actual normal physical controls, such as PC and the Wii U and the 3DS. So, apart from some levels where you have to do some gravity-based platforming and the controls shift a little bit in the second game especially, I never found myself having any problems with the controls or never having any issues with my characters going where I need them to be. So, in pretty much all cases, if you fall down a pit or fall down a pit with spikes, it's your own dang fault for not playing the game properly. In the first game, the levels start out simple. We're looking at your average run-and-gun levels where you have to get from point A to point B by defeating a bunch of enemies along the way and doing some very simple platforming. However, as the game progresses, it evolves into a fully blown and very good, very fun platformer with some interesting platforming mechanics. We go from the Wild West all the way to space itself, where the game even briefly turns into a side-scrolling shoot-'em-up. And it controls wonderfully even as a shoot-'em-up, it's a lot of fun. In Gunman Clive's second adventure, we see Gunman Clive traveling the world, and even traveling through time. So that has more gameplay and more level diversity. Again, we have shoot-'em-up segments, except this time in the second game they are 3D, and believe it or not, they once again control very well. It's very impressive how Gunman Clive's developer doesn't have a problem when it comes to seamlessly implementing different gameplay mechanics. Hell, even professional developers aren't always good at this. Gunman Clive shifts from a run-and-gun game to very well put-together platformer with some very interesting platforming to side-scrolling or 3D shoot-'em-up levels where the controls are as good as they are in the rest of the game. And in the second game we even have some horseback riding and shooting there, which once again controls wonderfully. The levels never stop being interesting and amusing both to play and look at. Throughout the adventure, Gunman Clive and his friends, there are multiple playable characters mind you, encounter some interesting bosses. Now, the bosses are, for the most part, very simple. Once you learn their patterns, you can easily defeat them, but they do present a fair amount of challenge on higher difficulties. Speaking of the game's difficulty levels, there are 3 difficulty levels to choose from: easy, normal, and hard. I'm not really sure if the game unlocks an even harder difficulty. I honestly don't care, because I personally play the game on easy, because from what I was able to tell, obstacle and enemy placement are the same on both normal and easy. However, easy mode has one advantage that I personally prefer, and that is when you happen to fall in a pit or spikes, the game takes a chunk of your health and restarts you at a checkpoint right where you died, whereas on normal and above, you die and you have to restart the whole level. I am not a fan of trying the same thing over and over, so if given the chance to use checkpoints, I will. So that's why I play on easy mode. However, you have to take into consideration that the levels are very short, so once you get used to them, once you learn them properly, you won't have a problem playing on normal and restarting the whole level, because, well, yes, it is annoying that one simple mistake makes you start over. The level is generally so short that once you get good at it, this won't be a problem. So by all means, you can play on whatever level of difficulty you find the game most enjoyable at. There is something for everybody here. As is the case with most run and gun games, Gunman Clive picks up a bunch of different weapons along the way, and once you get shot, you are back to your default gun. So if you're not that good at the game, and if you're not that good at avoiding bad guys, you probably won't get to experience the weapons as much as you'd like. So for my taste, I feel that the weapons should have been popping up more often, and at least each of the weapons feels and looks different enough and is fun to use. However, it would have been, and I really would love to see Gunman Clive 3, which is bigger, better, and with all sorts of different weapons, and where you don't lose your weapon the moment you get hit, because I'd really like to use and really enjoy different weapons in the game for longer periods of time, because, otherwise I'd have to get very good at the game, and that ain't happening, from what I can tell. So Gunman Clive is a wonderful platformer. It's a great run and gun game. It's an interesting little shooter. Everything this game does, it seems to excel at, and the visuals and audio are no exception. Both games have some of the best, most outstanding musical scores I've ever heard. It's incredible what was done with music in this game. It not only complements the hand-drawn-like, sketchpad-like visuals, which we'll get to a little bit later. The atmosphere the music creates is strangely nostalgic and mesmerizing. Haunting in a way, but in a good way. I've never heard anything like this, and something so perfect to come out of an indie game. It's unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. Just, you want to play these games in an environment where you can clearly hear the music and enjoy both visuals and music, because they complement each other so well. In the first game, we have Gunman Clive traveling the Wild West, while the second game, as I said, he travels the world, and the music adapts to this while also retaining that Gunman Clive Wild West sort of vibe to it. I don't know, it's just incredible what the music composer in this game did. Is simply outstanding. Gunman Clive is also visually an incredible looking game. It seems to use 3D models for its environments and characters. However, it uses a filter over them that gives it a sketchpad-like sort of hand-drawn look. The first one and the second one. Now, the first game uses more brown, light brown tones, whereas the second game is more diverse when it comes to its use of color. Both games are perfect the way they are in their choice of colors, and both games I believe, and I wouldn't want the first game to use more color than it uses, and I wouldn't want the second game to use less color than it currently uses. I think they both are done in a way that perfectly matches their setting, their atmosphere, their overall feel. So whatever the artist was going for there, he achieved it. What we have here visually is a very good looking, outstanding couple of games that I believe deserve all the praise they can get for both their visuals and audio. Earlier I mentioned that the games have multiple playable characters. We of course have Gunman Clive himself in both games. Both games also feature Miss Johnson, who controls, like Gunman Clive, she's a ranged attacker, but has that sort of hover jump thing Princess Peach has in some of the Mario games. The second game introduces a third playable character, and that is Chieftain Bob, who is, surprisingly enough, a melee character, and he really changes up the way you deal with foes in the game. Now, both games, once beaten, unlock a secret character, and that's a duck. You could say it's a joke character, however, it controls differently enough for it to add yet another layer of fun and entertainment to the Gunman Clive games. So, there is a lot to see and do in these games given how short and small they are. They have enough content to keep you entertained, and even if you go through everything they have to offer, these are the type of games you will always be coming back to and replaying, if nothing else, for relaxation. I cannot recommend the Gunman Clive games enough, and I hope to God that we see physical retail releases of these games at some point. I'm looking at limited run games I've bought from them couple times now, and I hope to God they pick these games up and release them, because I would love to have a physical release of both games more than anything, especially if it comes with some nice art, like maybe an art book or art prints or something, because honestly, Gunman Clive deserves more attention, more recognition than it gets. So I wholeheartedly recommend the game to anyone who wants a simple run-and-gun platformer. And I'm gonna say something that might sound weird to some of you, but I want to thank the developer for creating such an incredible experience. I want to thank them, and I hope they create a third game which is bigger, even better than what we have now, and which retains the same level of simplicity and fun the first two games have. I honestly don't think I'd enjoy some sort of, Metroidvania or some very difficult hardcore Gunman Clive game. However, I would absolutely love a simple pick-up-and-play platformer with run-and-gun elements like the current games are, except longer, bigger, and even better. So hopefully we will see that in the future. And heck, if the developer wants to make a Metroidvania, let him, create it. However, what we have now is, in my opinion, absolutely perfect, and it just needs to be built upon further for the third game. So once again, I thank the developer for creating these outstanding games, and I hope you all buy them and give them a chance, because you have nothing to lose. The games are very cheap and they're so much fun. Do not pirate these games. I rarely say this, and we will make a video on piracy and my take on it. However, these games I would really, really like for people to buy and support their developers, because they deserve it. They're incredible games.